All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. We're going to talk about a slew of finals from the weekend across Wimbledon, Euro 2024, and the chaotic Copa America final. We'll talk a little bit about the Open Championship and then some MLB awards at the end. National League Rookie of the Year, National League Cy Young, and AL Rookie of the Year. But Drew, how's it going? How was your weekend?
Pretty excellent, mostly because of the results Sunday. Saturday did nothing for me. I had no Barbora Krejčíková, sorry. Sunday was incredible. I was pretty heavily staked into Alcaraz doing what he did. And, that was just a fun watch in general because he picked up, his level that he showed throughout from the Tommy Paul match to lifting the cup. Was pretty outstanding, and then Spain coming through was awesome too. So spent most of my weekend at the beach, got some sun, did some swimming, and enjoyed all of the Sunday results. From wire to wire, really everything went my way yesterday, so in a great mood.
Very good. All right, well, we'll get to Sunday in a second, but let's start off with Barbora Krejčíková, who still strange to say out loud that she won Wimbledon, but she did, beating Paolini in the final. Krejčíková closed minus 130. One point Paolini, I think, got out to plus 500 or so after losing the first set, and then got into being a pretty heavy favorite in the third set when she had all the momentum. And she was up, 1-love, and then 2-1, then 3-2, and it seemed like she was on the path. Do you think there are any takeaways or lessons from Krejčíková getting up as a massive long shot before the tournament and just the state of the women's tennis in general at the moment?
Yeah, I think the major takeaways are you just have to have a very open mind about what can happen on grass, especially on the ladies' side. I think just in general, the best of three format and the fact that none of the women who are currently, kind of at the top of the, top of the standings among the women's players are all that good at, or consistent on grass is really just opens the door for everyone. And last year, in something like 5,000 words spilled about the Wimbledon preview. Never mentioned Marketa Vondrousova. This year, 5,000 words spilled. Never mentioned Barbora Krejčíková. I think it's just kind of a wild coincidence that some of these players who first find success on clay then translate, and several years later they're like amazing on grass. Krejčíková went especially under the radar for me because her performances this year up to that point were pretty poor, and she came out and played much better than she has at any point in the 2024 calendar or the 2023 calendar. And that was a shock. Where that came from and whether that's sustainable and whether this is like a late career arc for her is a different question, I guess. But happy for her, happy for Czechia. She obviously had a lot of really powerful and wonderful, lovely things to say about Jana Novotná, which was cool. And she's a worthy champion. She took on some contenders and she beat them. Beating Ostapenko in the form she was in, cleanly beating Rybakina, and then getting the better of Paolini, who's been playing great tennis this year. Like, those are 3 wins. This is not a any kind of a chump title for her. So very cool. And I think why I missed it so much beyond just the fact that she has been in poor form this year, I just didn't have much grass data that I thought was very useful for her because she just hasn't played very much on grass. But then part of the reason I didn't really kind of look too hard, I don't really look at doubles data all that much. And she's got plenty of pedigree on grass in doubles. She's won the Wimbledon ladies doubles title before. So this shouldn't have been as shocking as it was. But I will tell you that in all of my years watching tennis and betting it and handicapping it, this was the most unlikely final that I've ever seen, period. There is virtually no set of numbers, no set of ratings on earth that would have given this better than a 1 in 10,000 chance of happening. I would have made it 1 in 25,000 chance that we would have Krejčíková versus Paolini when Sabalenka was in the draw. So this was pretty rare and pretty wild. And the final itself was very good. Like, it had its ups and downs, but Krejčíková in particular in that first set was dynamic on serve. She was getting every first serve in. She was crafting points very, very cleverly and using all of the court and really kind of just pinpoint precision with their shot making. And I was just like, wow, you just have to tip your hat. If somebody's going to find that level on this stage and be able to perform, that well, then, you just acknowledge it and move on. Paolini went into that third set as a pretty healthy favorite in the live market. I think she was minus 160-ish, depending on where you were looking. And some of that was because she was serving first. But for Krejčíková to kind of particularly kind of re-find her game after it completely abandoned her in the second set, I thought was pretty impressive as well. So I'm never kind of going into another ladies Wimbledon championship without kind of just acknowledging there are 128 women in this field. Anyone could pop.
Yeah, I will say I watched a fair bit of Krejčíková, and I understand that she did play really well in that first set. She had moments throughout, but I didn't think she got to an insanely high level really at any point. And it's strange because that doesn't really cohere with, you mentioned the fact that she beat Rybakina, she beat Ostapenko in straight sets, who was playing really well. I mean, she beat Paolini, who was the 7th seed and is coming off being in the final at Roland Garros, and she even beat Danielle Collins and Kudermetova in the first round. Like these weren't layups, and she got through all of them. But at the same time, it didn't ever feel super solid. And she served the double fault at 30 love when she was serving for the match, and she started to get a little bit shaky in the final. And then there was a break point that Paolini had. She had a couple of them to make it 5-all, and I think Krejčíková just painted a line on one of the break points, and it feels like, if that's an inch to the right or an inch out, then all of a sudden she flips back into being a dog to win. So it turns on these margins, but ultimately she stuck it out, and she is the Wimbledon champion. Strange as that is to say.
Yeah.
On the men's side, a lot. I guess.
One real quick thought. Despite having won $0 on Krejčíková winning, this was a much more enjoyable ladies final than either of the last two. So I'll give it. I'll say that.
Unbelievable. These past 3 Wimbledons, we've had Vondrousova, who I did think got just very lucky with her
extremely lucky, right?
Where she didn't have to play. She didn't have to play Iga because Svitolina took her out for her last year. She didn't have to play Rybakina or Sabalenka because Ons did all the hard work there. And then she didn't really have to play Ons Jabeur in the final either because Ghost had taken over Ons' body, such as the nature of Ons in these finals. Anyway, let's go to the men's side. Actually, one last thing on the women's side. The way that the live market fluctuates based on momentum, I think is really interesting, where the market is fully bought in to attaching a massive amount of importance at a point-by-point level in terms of how players are gaining control of the match and building momentum, which I think is probably fair. You have to calculate the degree to which it stands. I do think there are some really violent swings. The fact that Paolini was like 5-1 after losing the first set was aggressive. I thought the fact that I think Paolini got into like minus 260 when she was up 1-0 in the third set because she had, she just won the second set 6-2. I think you probably have to understand and be modeling tennis at a deeper level than I understand the match and how these markets work. But again, it's just these are really rapid and violent swings, and sometimes just on a superficial glance, they do seem a little bit over the top. But what do you think?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They are, and the true fair price at any given point in a match is probably somewhere in between a really heavy momentum model and just neutral point by point pre-match stuff, because that is sort of the trick to getting the live market at least more close to understanding what the live price should be. Is you have a neutral point win percentage based on surface, based on player, based on history, based on you however you come up with that probability, and then that gets updated on a point by point basis, honestly. And you can basically either take a healthy pre-match anchoring weight, or you can basically just let it fly with Bayesian updating. And to me, I've always kind of felt like the momentum that the market implies is a little bit overstated. But there's hundreds of millions of dollars of worldwide liquidity that hits this thing, and people are trading back and forth largely just on volatility more so than they are really trying to predict outcomes. And so it's a totally different way to look at live betting compared to, say, basketball.
Yep. Well, momentum model would have worked in the men's final as Carlos Alcaraz. Momentum models, they tend to work when it is one-way traffic the entire match from the get-go, and then the guy just wins in straight sets, which is what Alcaraz did, though Novak did put up a fight in the third set when it looked like he was, at times it looked like he was a point away from just the dam breaking and him losing 2-2-2. But I guess the tiebreak in the third set still goes down. To me, the most interesting thing about this is not, Alcaraz asserts himself as a better player than Novak Djokovic. We'll see how he does against Sinner going forward. But he just established that he has a ceiling that I think is beyond what Djokovic can touch in his current state. But to me, what was most interesting is just how the pre-match price just bounced around off the walls, where Alcaraz, he got out to like -155 at one point, and then Djokovic got into +105, and it was just going all over the place. And understand that, as a general rule, markets that are driven by Betfair are just going to be more efficient, because that is just by nature the most efficient mechanism to get to correct pricing when there is a ton of liquidity and you can just openly trade in a relatively open market. And so in theory, that should create accurate prices. But when the price is moving around that much, obviously there was a lot of disagreement. And so ultimately it settles at Alcaraz -135, that type of range, Novak +115. Was it surprising to you how the market moved around, where it ended up at, and kind of any learnings in general from the men's side?
Yeah, yes. So your commentary is very fair. It was very interesting to see. And my explanation for why was that it was a lopsided set of outcomes. It was either going to be a good match and a coin flip, or it was going to be what we saw, which was Alcaraz domination. There was not a tale of Djokovic dominating Alcaraz, at least from anyone who watched all of the preceding tennis up to that point. Like, there was like kind of a narrow band of Djokovic shows up, Alcaraz is a little tight, and Djokovic has a little bit more in his arsenal than he's shown us, and he's gonna make a match of this and try to win the high leverage points, or he was just gonna get run off the court because. And for those reasons, like, I had no interest in laying the price on Alcaraz, even though my number said it should have been more like 175. I was more like, well, if I'm inclined to just shoot for the honeypot, which was, if this goes his way, it's going to be, virtually there's nothing Djokovic can do. Rather than just kind of nibbling at or laying a price that was, a little shy, but not just outrageously low. So, I think there was probably some healthy recreational volume because people saw Djokovic as a dog at Wimbledon, which, when we were talking last Wednesday and you asked, well, what do you think the price was going to be? And I thought, I don't know, Djokovic -120. I was answering in the context of the market has always given him an enormous amount of respect at this particular tournament. Like, up against like a peak Roger Federer, he would still be favored. And it's just like, I couldn't really wrap my head around that there would be as much of an appetite for Alcaraz as there was, but it was there and it was right. And I think in general, kind of trying to pick on the tale of, if Alcaraz is on, this is going to be, this is going to be short work, was what I think a lot of players were kind of attacking that way. Right. So you had the kind of a weird sort of split in terms of staking, where there were a lot of people that were just willing to lay whatever with Alcaraz in terms of games, in terms of sets. And then there were people that were perfectly fine taking a money line price. And so the adjustment had to be, kind of a little bit, hand done, I would guess. But, as far as the matchup itself, I think this was probably, my guess is this is probably going to be as close as Djokovic gets to another slam, unless he just gets a wild break of luck and doesn't have to face the likes of Alcaraz or Sinner. And the fact that both of those guys now have clean kills on him this year in his tournaments on his surfaces, that's bad. So, you know, I'm not saying that like basically we've seen the end of champion Djokovic, but I will never really understand why he went so hard at the end of last season, playing tournaments that he usually just kind of mails in, and didn't really kind of get himself right for a run at Wimbledon and you know, French Wimbledon and Olympics, since they were all clustered in this summer. And I think you know, with the expectation that you're going to see him anywhere close to his peak again is just it's just not likely. And I would expect that you know, from here, you know, just enjoy him while he's, you know, available, because he does still create pretty spectacular moments, as he did in this tournament with some of his wins leading up to the final. But yeah, I would think that he's going to be a healthy underdog to Sinner and Alcaraz at the Aussie at Wimbledon from here forward.
Yep. There is a thunderstorm happening where I am at the moment. Novak Djokovic expressing his discontent with your sweeping obituary of his peak and his prospects going forward. So that is the loud noise in the background for anyone hearing it. I think the strange thing with pricing the final, I think, was always going to be just the rest advantage that Djokovic had, where I think that well, for the large part, I think it was acknowledged that Alcaraz is probably the superior player, but I think he played 6 extra sets than Djokovic heading into the final. And it turns out perhaps that Alcaraz is, you know, he just turned 21.
21.
And maybe he just has an energy meter of infinity, and it didn't seem to bother him at all. Maybe if it had gone longer, it would have reared its head, but that was really what Djokovic had going for him, and it just didn't seem to really manifest at all. Seemed like a complete mismatch. We'll get into the US Open pricing going forward as we get a little bit closer, but let's jump to soccer ball, which had 2, I think, relatively poor finals. Spectacle, anyway. Obviously, Copa America was an absolute disaster in terms of everything leading up to and around the final, and then the match itself, it wasn't, I don't think, a great spectacle from what I saw. But Spain, England, this England side, they close the slight dogs. They lose 2-1 after they equalized through Cole Palmer in the 70th minute or whatever, and then they go down at the death. This England side is just a reminder that in tournament football, tournament soccer, you don't really have to be that good, because it is a low bar to clear to progress sometimes, because these teams, they have very limited continuity. They often have big names playing in positions that aren't necessarily optimal for structure, but they're just in because they're big names, Cristiano Ronaldo being the most glaring example of that with Portugal. But this England side, like, they go into the final, they decide, all right, we're going to sit back with a really low block. When you sit back with a really low block and you're going to play on the counter, what you need is players who can play on the counter. And they didn't have anyone outside, because you have to play Foden, allegedly. You have to play Bellingham. You have to play Harry Kane. And these guys are not like pacey wingers. The only time they really looked good was when they were breaking out on the right through Bukayo Saka, who's the only like traditional guy to really help you play on the counter. And the fact that, you know, Harry Kane just shouldn't have been playing. They just should have started Ollie Watkins, but because he's the captain, he's Harry Kane, he has to play. And it was just, I thought, just a relatively gutless showing from England in terms of their tactics, in terms of their lineups, in terms of the fact that they finally started to gain some ascendancy when they equalized, and then they just immediately went back into their shell. I also thought it was kind of, and I haven't seen this touched on as much, but they played in a low block in the first half, and I thought they were in relative control of the match. I thought it was being played somewhat on their terms, and then as soon as they come out of halftime and Rodri's gone off injured, they decide, all right, now we're going to play with a high line. And literally on Spain's first attack, they get through the high line and score just a walk-in easy goal for Nico Williams. So I just thought it was a bit of a mess overall. I don't think there's any real great learnings to take outside of the fact that it can be sometimes a low bar to clear to succeed at these tournaments and even to get to a final, because I think England, which is not a very good side and did not play like a very good side, I don't think they played one good match all tournament outside of the first half against the Netherlands. But outside of that, They just didn't play that well, and they still got to the final, and then they were handled by, I think, by far the best team of the tournament, and a very worthy winner in Spain.
Without question. Yeah, that was a skating but accurate takedown. And I mean, the man at the top and Garrett Southgate is going to, he's going to bear the cost of the tactical failures, and it's on him. So, I think maybe England are a little bit more interesting as a future contender at a World Cup if they bring in a more tactical, and I guess just someone with better vision, I suppose, in terms of what he wants the team to be, because I was never really impressed with anything they did tactically. And I think all your commentary is very fair. I mean, Harry Kane did not belong out there, and the moments that Saka was on the wing on the counter were terrifying as a Spain backer. But clearly the right team won. Like, Spain was by far the best, and I don't know, England was probably the fifth best team that played at the Euro, something in that ballpark.
Everyone was bad. France was bad. Portugal,
Germany
was
were pretty good.
Yeah. I think Germany was the second best team, and then England, France, Portugal, Netherlands, just kind of
all kind of in a miasma there.
Were those teams much better than Croatia, who got knocked out in the group stage? I think
Croatia had more XG generated than England. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, no. But no, I think Spain was amazing, and they're going to be amazing for years to come because this core is so young. I think the moment that really will stick with me forever was the goal line clearance by Olmo. Oh my goodness! Again, as a Spain backer, my heart was in my throat. I could not believe that they were manifesting these luck box chances, and it felt like that was going to go in after Simon pops it out and right onto the head, and comes right back to the goal line. But Olmo was spectacular, I thought, and then my big head scratching moment was Rodri was player of the tournament. That caught me by surprise entirely. Do you have an opinion on whether that was the right call? I'm not enough of a soccer knower to really say that was just a huge injustice. It was obviously a team effort, and you had excellence at about 5 players deep for the Spanish side, and so you just got to pick one of them, and they pick. They pick him, I guess. I don't know. I thought Olmo deserved it. I thought you could have made a case for Yamal. You could have made a case for Nico Williams. You could have made a case for Fabian Ruiz. And I guess, I don't know. Was that an injustice, or was there some there that I'm missing?
I think it was an injustice. I thought going into the final that Rodri would win just because there is an alternative young player of the tournament award that was right there for Yamal, and the people voting on this award had never thought they were going to give 2 awards to a 16-year-old because he was 17 by the time the final.
Did you think he was the best player?
No. I would have, if I was voting and it limited to Spanish players, I think Fabian Ruiz, Olmo, Lamine Yamal, and then Nico Williams or Rodri 4th and 5th. Okay. I don't think it's a massive, massive travesty. I think Rodri is incredible, and he's a key part of the team, but he didn't play the second half of the final when they won the final, and I just don't think he had the same level of impact that Ruiz and Olmo did. I mean, they play a 3-man midfield, and I think pretty clearly Rodri was the 3rd best player in the midfield in the tournament.
That's so true.
But okay. Yeah, that's what it is. I think the lesson there is that the voters, one, it's a very informal process from what I've ascertained, and 2, they skew to big names and legacy stuff, and they don't look at really stats as much. So the fact that Dani Olmo has 3 goals, 2 assists, and Rodri had I think 1 goal, and that just doesn't matter that much. Iniesta won player of the tournament without scoring a goal in 2012, and they just default to pedigree. That's why I am certain, relatively certain, that Toni Kroos, if Germany had won, Toni Kroos just would have won. He just would have won player of the tournament, and it wouldn't have mattered how many goals Musiala or whoever scored. He was just going to win, and Rodri was just going to win because he's the highest pedigree player on the team, and I think acknowledged as kind of the best player on the team in terms of just his pedigree and what he's done at the club level, etc. But no, I don't think he deserved it. But that's all right. Wow. Let's jump to Miami. Argentina, Colombia. Any thoughts on this one? How it's played out and any learnings?
No, this was unwatchable.
Yeah.
I mean, Colombia probably should have won. I had Argentina, and I didn't need it, but I enjoyed it. You know, I honestly couldn't even tell you my 5 favorite things. I can tell you my 3 favorite things about the match. Honestly, it just felt like this was just way too much danger and drama swirling for you know, an event with that many people. It was just kind of rooting for no catastrophe, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, your natural reaction is like, how are they going to play the game, or how are they going to play the match with all this happening? And the second reaction is, well, how are they possibly going to reschedule and do this all again? So, yeah, obviously, a disgrace the way that it all played out, and then the product on the pitch wasn't much either. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I think Colombia were the better performing team for the tournament. They certainly outplayed Argentina in the first half. And then after that, honestly, I was in and out of the game because I just didn't really care that much. And it seemed like that was probably a good decision overall. All right, before we get to the Open Championship and our thoughts on it, for the 10th time in history, Royal Troon hosts the world's best golfers who are competing for the title, Championship Golfer of the Year. It's the only major where victory is best served out of a jug. Drew, the 152nd Open, Thursday through Sunday on NBC USA and streaming on Peacock. All right, let's jump into this. Scottie Scheffler, shocker, is your favorite at 5-1. Rory McIlroy and his demons are 8-1. The in-form Ludwig Åberg is 12-1. And then we have Bryson DeChambeau, Xander Schauffele, Colin Morikawa, familiar faces in the next tier of betting. And then Jon Rahm and Tommy Fleetwood. Do you have any favorite among the favorites?
I don't. I think this is going to be a wide open tournament. Obviously, the last time this was contested, it was 2016. I was betting golf a little bit more, or at least I was rudimentally trying to originate golf at the time. And I remember watching this tournament, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was a birdie fest. Stenson won. He snatched it out of Phil Mickelson's hand by shooting an 8 under on the final day to finish the tournament 20 under. Beautiful in general. I'm a huge fan of links golf. Like I find it, you know, just in general, like visually fun, and excited for this particular course and this particular championship. But I think the idea of this being any kind of top heavy, you know, pricing right now seems crazy to me. Scottie Scheffler certainly has cooled off tremendously since you know, the absolute heater he was on going through and winning the Masters. And you know, I think just in general, if in a lot of the same ways that Scheffler was struggled at Pinehurst because of his putting, like, you know, if you're not putting well and if you're not hitting birdies on this course, then you may find yourself in a dogfight. So I don't know that I would bet Scheffler not to finish in the top 20, but I certainly think that the margin between him, McIlroy, Åberg, Xander, Morikawa, it's narrow. And I think, you know, there is like a whole cadre of guys in the 50 to 100-1 range who on any given day are going to be good enough to challenge here. This is the best field, I think, of all of the majors we've had so far, including the guys with some of the guys from Live in the mix here, and just a bigger field than the Masters. And I think this is going to be a wide open tournament. So I guess consider me against the top of the board at price. And you know, I think you're really just looking for somebody who can catch a heater with their putter.
Yep. Firstly, the weather app on my phone told me no rain this afternoon. Meanwhile, it's like the day after tomorrow. Classic Jake Gyllenhaal, not very good film from, I think, 2005, outside in Stamford, Connecticut right now. But yeah, I think to me, the most interesting thing about this tournament really is if Rory McIlroy is in the mix on Sunday, what happens in terms of his live pricing? Does he start to get like a Xander Schauffele kind of Dak Prescott live penalty that, you know, Xander obviously exercised by claiming his first major? But that to me is really what I'm cheering for, is just McIlroy being in the mix at the death. Do you think that will start to kind of infect the live market now if McIlroy is playing with the lead or is in the mix?
I would think yes. I mean, and I would have said no, stop it, narrative, blah, 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 like a year ago. But the Xander stuff at the PGA Championship was, you can't explain it any other way. And I don't know that I'm going to have the confidence to kind of try to take advantage of what will probably be plus EV opportunities, but I think there will probably be a penalty on his expectation in market based on what happened at the US Open. And honestly, like, a meltdown of that proportion, if he does show up and play well here, I'm going to be surprised. Like, my expectations for him are pretty low. I know he took a couple weeks off to get his, to kind of regroup, and he was fine at the Scottish Open. But yeah, I think I count me at like kind of low expectations for Rory this week.
Yep, no, I think that's fair. All right, before we move on, any long shots that appeal to you, some big names and some guys who have won the tournament previously, like Cam Smith, who's 40-1, Brooks Koepka is 40-1, Jordan Spieth, 66-1. Perhaps not super appetizing given how he's been playing, but anyone leap out to you at a longer price?
Yeah, I kind of like Joaquin Niemann at 66-1. That was the first one that stood out to me because he kind of might be benefiting from a lot like what a lot of the other live guys have in these markets where you don't see them often. You're not regularly kind of chewing on their data. And it's tough to kind of truly correct the live data for how to apply it in a field of this quality. And I think through all of the process and through the assumptions and the guesswork here, he's coming in like a 66 to 80 range when it should be closer to the 40 range. So that's the big number that really stood out to me as a little bit of a whiff. And then everybody else kind of in that tier of higher than 50, lower than 100. I would make a case for Noren here. He was a betting darling at the US Open, did not deliver, and his price now feels like it's been corrected aggressively up for no reason. And then Sungjae Im also kind of in that ballpark where I like his game for this course, and I generally think he's being a little bit slept on after a bit of a poor run of form. So those are sort of the three guys I would look for. But honestly, this is darts for me this week because, again, like, I think the top of the board is overpriced, and I think just in general, we're not going to really know who's got the right feel and the right, the confidence in the putter until we see some golf get played.
Okay. All right. Before we move to MLB, the Roto-World Draft Guide is back, Drew, and it has a bit of a facelift, now available exclusively through a partnership with my good friend Matthew Berry and his company Fantasy Life. Get a Fantasy Life Plus subscription and receive the Roto-World Draft Guide to help you dominate your competition. Use promo code ROTOWORLD10 for 10% off and unlock extensive fantasy, DFS, and betting tools now. Go to NBCSports.com/fantasylife to learn more. All right. Before the power goes out in Stamford, Connecticut, let's talk about some of these baseball awards. Let's start with National League Rookie of the Year. Paul Skenes has pulled away after a dominant last performance where 7 no-hit innings. He's starting the All-Star game. He is minus 1,200 to win Rookie of the Year. Jackson Merrill is 5-1. Shota Imanaga is 28-1. And then Gavin Stone, Michael Busch, Mason Wynn, Joey Ortiz, and a surging Rhys Hines, who, if he keeps kind of compiling one WAR per week, he might give Skenes a shake, but that's unlikely to continue. Do you have any thoughts on this market?
Should probably be like minus 12,000. But if you're going to take a shot against, I would try and I would only look at position players. I don't think realistically any of the other pitchers can do enough now to change the narrative in their favor. And I think Skenes in general is just going to run away with this because it's kind of the only fun story to tell in baseball. I don't know. It doesn't really feel like there's much buzz going on outside of Skenes' arrival this year, and I think just in general that should help push him pretty clear of the field in this market, even if one of the position players does close the gap in terms of WAR.
Yeah, I think with Skenes in general, I would rather be against any pitcher for any award who's minus 1,200 at the All-Star break, just because of the amount of volatility in the position and the injury risk. The thing with Rookie of the Year, though, is you don't need as much volume. And I think that Skenes, it's not even a matter of him staying healthy or avoiding any innings limit, which supposedly doesn't exist for the rest of the season. Like, he probably, if he just lasts another month, I think if he lasts 4 more weeks, it might just be done. Like, if he just can get to if he can get to 100 innings, maybe like high 90s in innings, if he's going to maintain this level of dominance, he's striking out more than 12 per 9. He's got an ERA under 2. He's just, in Rookie of the Year, you kind of regress to, or I think voters value, dominance and peak within the ceiling over, longevity and accumulation of things like of WAR or in the NBA games played. Like, we've just seen enough evidence across these Rookie of the Year markets that is what is more valued. So I think that Skenes minus 1,200, I mean, I wouldn't be rushing to back minus 1,200 just because of how he throws and if he was to get injured. The thing with Skenes now, though, is that his ERA is so good and he's got enough volume that even if he was to give up like 6 earned runs next time out, he's still the clear favorite after that. So I think he's in a pretty dominant position. If I was to throw some darts in this market, Michael Busch is 40-1. Joey Ortiz, who leads all rookie hitters in F4, he's 50-1. Those would be the 2 darts I'd throw. I think with this market, because Skenes are so dominant, books have just gotten a bit lazy with how they've priced the rest of the market. Like Jackson Merrill is barely more likely to win than Busch or Ortiz, and he's 5-1, and those other 2 guys are 40-1 and 50-1. So I think that's just a little bit of just being obsessed with the Skenes price, and they're not redistributing the rest of the book as properly as possible, frankly. So I would look at Busch and Ortiz, but I wouldn't feel good about it because I think that Skenes is ultimately going to walk this in with just a little bit more health. Can I twist your arm on only Ortiz? Ortiz?
Yeah, he's had significant less, fewer plate appearances, games played than Busch, and he is already ahead of him in every category that matters that I can tell you.
Yeah, and Ortiz is just, I mean, he's just a really solid player. He's like a 4-WAR type of player on a team that is likely going to win its division. The issue is, if you asked, 98% of baseball fans, who does Joey Ortiz play for? You have no idea. And if you asked, what's the best story in baseball right now, to your point, Paul Skenes. So Ortiz isn't going to win he's not going to win a fight head-to-head with Skenes. He needs Skenes to exit the race, and then he can win in a fractured field where there's no super inspiring candidate, and he can emerge. Yeah. But I mean,
he should be. I don't know. He should be second choice, and he's 50-1.
Yeah, I think there's an argument for that. Like, the issue is that he doesn't. His value is defense and plate discipline, which
he never strikes out. His strikeout percentage is amazingly low.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a 369 on base percentage. He's a really good defensive player. I mean, he's batting leadoff for a team that, is going to compete for a bye in the National League. So, yeah, he's got a lot in his favor. It's just that I don't think anyone's really going to care. And I think someone like Michael Busch could get to, 25 home runs and a slugging percentage of, above 500. Like, at least he has a little bit more upside. He's overperforming his expected numbers. That's why it's not super enticing.
He's a strikeout machine also.
Yeah. I think also, like, the way you need to price this market is, like, what percentage chance does Skenes just exit the market and become non-electable, between injury that has to happen ASAP or between just turning into a pumpkin, which seems fairly unlikely, though it is possible, even though he's banked, he's banked 66 innings of being basically close to the best pitcher in baseball. So I think that, they're in the Skenes out market, which I think is maybe like 15% of the market. Yeah, Busch, Ortiz, these guys, they should probably be a little bit more than what they are in the market currently, but it's not a fun bet to make, even though I wouldn't want to lay 40-1 and 50-1 on Busch and Ortiz if I was booking that. So those would be my 2 bets in the at the moment, uninspired as they might be. I think the more interesting market around Skenes is National League Cy Young, where his price has collapsed from 200-1 to plus 400, which I think is kind of ridiculous. And look, I don't think he is going to win this award, but also I know some people I speak to this about, they think that he's like 0%. I don't think he's 0%. I think there are worlds where if he got to like 135 innings pitched and has an ERA that starts with a 1 and every other candidate is just uninspiring and have ERAs that start with a 3, I think in that world that Skenes could win, where people just can be like, oh, I don't feel good about anyone. I feel good about the guy who I think is the best pitcher in baseball right now and is the best story in baseball, and I'm going to vote for him. But that is an incredibly high bar to clear and certainly longer, I think, than plus 400. But what do you think of this market where Chris Sale is the favorite at plus 115, Zach Wheeler is plus 155, then we have Skenes, and then we have a range of long shots that we can get into?
Yeah, I mean, I like Sale. Obviously, we've talked about Sale on this and made cases for him when he was much longer. So I'm not now beating the table saying bet it at 115. But I also am not inclined to play any defense on him right now. I think he's going to ultimately win this award, even though Zach Wheeler and there are a couple other real long shots that I'm kind of not really understanding why the market isn't warmer on them. But the Skenes conversation is fascinating. There are people who will point to. And again, like the voting block for the baseball awards is a lot of baseball writers, some of whom aren't going to vote for Paul Skenes because he's a rookie, period. And he's not in their, lexicon of potential candidates for this award, just because in the same way that there are writers for the voters for the Hall of Fame that will not vote for a guy in the first time because they just won't. I've seen a lot of comps to Dwight Gooden in his rookie year where he was clearly the best player in baseball and did not win the Cy Young because he was a rookie. And I know that was a very long time ago and there's been a lot of turnover in the voting block, but I think that there is still a ton of stubborn sort of traditionalism in the way that this stuff gets done. And so I kind of agree that it's going to take a huge, clearly he is the choice for that to be enough to shake him, to kind of get him to the top of enough ballots to make the difference. As I kind of look down the list, or really just like is there anyone who is going to be relatively significantly, or at least is going to be considered, who I don't really understand pricing on. I guess I'm not sure why Wheeler is the choice among the Philadelphia Phillies pitchers. Like the Phillies are a great team and they have a lot of strengths, but I mean, Zach Wheeler is one of 4 guys who all are kind of clustered pretty closely in terms of WAR right now. And I'm not entirely sure if it's just because he has the wins that he is the, kind of the de facto, choice for the Phillies. But yeah, I mean, would you give any type of likelihood to either Sanchez or Suarez or Aaron Nola right now, who all are kind of right in the mix with Wheeler in terms of overall productivity so far this season?
Yeah, so I think that the rort in this market is mainly just being against Zach Wheeler, who the market is saying that he's like a 40% chance to win the award, and I think it's more like a 10% chance, really. I think that he's being covered a bit right now by his ERA, which is tied with Sale. And look, Zach Wheeler can absolutely win the award, but he hasn't been that good this year when you look under the hood. He's got a FIP of 3.31, an XFIP 3.46. His K rate is below 10. His walk rate is up relative to other candidates, almost 3 per 9. Like he just hasn't been as dominant. And it's just the ERA and his rep are obscuring that. He's also, by the way, just missed his last start with an injury with, back tightness, which is, not as bad as a shoulder or an elbow, but still a little bit of a concern. So I think this market is being priced way too much as though it's, a 2-horse race between Sale and Wheeler with Skenes as the smoky. I think that Sale is tier 1 by himself and should be the favorite for the award. Not super appetizing betting him at plus 115, but like Sale right now, tied for the league lead in ERA. He's second in WHIP. He's first in wins, in Ks per 9. He's third. Like he just ticks every box. And so I think that, and also like his underlying stuff is even better than his actual numbers. So look, it could fall off for Sale. He's an injury risk, just like all pitchers are. He's probably an elevated injury risk relative to most, given his history, but I think he is the clear favorite. I think, though, that all the Wheeler equity, or at least the majority of it, the vast majority of it, needs to be redistributed into what I think is a much more open race than the market is saying at the moment. Like right now, Sale, as good a case as he has a 2.7 ERA. Like he's one blow up away from having an ERA north of 3, and then it just brings everyone else back into the conversation. So I think there's a number of guys who are all like 100 to 1 or longer who just need to be way shorter. You mentioned one of them, Christopher Sanchez, who is second in F-WAR, who is second in FIP among candidates, who's been excellent to date. Aaron Nola, his teammate as well, another Philly, who I won't go into the numbers of all these guys, but Aaron Nola, Hunter Green, Sanchez, Sonny Gray as well. Like all these guys, like 100 to 1. Like I don't think they're even that much less likely. They are less likely to win than Wheeler, but I don't think they're substantially less likely. And they're 100 to 1, and he's plus 155. So I would be taking flyers on those guys. I'd also be monitoring the health of Tyler Glasnow, who I think has been dismissed a little bit too quickly in the market. His ERA has shot up to 3.47, but everything else is awesome. Like he has the best whip in the league. His K rate is the best in the NL. So he's another guy who I think is looming a little bit, though, on the IL currently. So I think that Sale I'd take the field against Sale certainly, but I think that he is the most likely guy to win. But I would be taking flyers on these guys like Nola, Gray, Green, Sanchez, because I think they're more live than their prices imply.
Yeah, that's very well said, and I agree with you. I think Wheeler is the misprice.
Yep. Okay, let's go to another market which I think is very mispriced at the top, and that is American League Rookie of the Year. Wyatt Langford, who I know you have in pocket, and I think there are worlds where Wyatt Langford can win. It's just there's no way that he's plus 120 fair or remotely close to that. He has been bad this year. He's not been good, and he is the favorite for the award because he has a name that people recognize, and I think he hit for the cycle recently, or not really recently, but within the past month, and then his price has plummeted off of that, and no one knows how to redistribute equity in this market, so he's just sitting there at plus 120. Like Wyatt Langford right now has a WRC plus of 94, so he is so that means that he's like 6% worse than the average major league hitter, and he's also a bad defensive player. He's played 72 games and has 0.6 WAR, which is 0.6 more WAR than I've accumulated personally in the 2024 MLB season. Like he projects going forward as a better hitter than a lot of the rest of these candidates, but there's just no reason whatsoever he should be plus 120 or close to that. I think Luis Gil should be the favorite for the award.
Really?
Plus 200 is not very appetizing. I just think he's the most likely guy to win, and thus should be the favorite, but I don't think that he is, favorite against the field or anything by any means. He has had a few blow-ups recently, though his past 2 starts, he's kind of righted the ship. But I think this market is ripe for a few long shots that we can get into. But what do you think of AL Rookie of the Year overall?
Yeah, you mentioned it. I bet Langford preseason at 4 to 1 or something like that, because we had some early mail that he was going to make the starting. He was going to make the club out of spring training, and we're like, well, great. You got a great offense. You got a young player who's going to get a lot of volume. Let's go. And in preparation for the show, I looked at the notes, and I thought there must be some mistake. He can't be the favorite. How does this? Is it just a matter of nobody has bothered to bet into the right numbers here to fix the price, and that's why it is what it is? Because I don't understand how this happened. In that he is at the top of the market in the first place.
So I think the reason is that, one, he just has an immense amount of pedigree in terms of, just his prospect ranking, the fact that he's the number 2 overall ranked prospect in baseball coming into the season. He has a profile that is very favorable in terms of being able to hit for power, though that is really only a theoretical skill at this point because he has 5 home runs in 72 games. But it's really just pedigree and the fact that he hit for the cycle and had one awesome game. He was injured for a long time, then he came out really hot out of that stretch, and his price just caved off of that. And it was like one hot stretch, times the pedigree, and the market just put him at plus 120. He got into minus money at one point. And I think the reason why he's just been sitting there at that price is that there are no good candidates in this field. Like, everyone just isn't very good. And it's, I think, a very kind of complicated market to price. And for that reason, no one has really staked their claim. But I just think that because the field is so weak and because there is no dominant front runner, I just think this market needs to be extremely flat. And you've got a lot of guys who are 50 to 1 who should be more like 12, 13 to 1. And that's how this market should be priced. I don't think there's like one guy of the long shots who he should just be like plus 400 in the favorite or something. I think that it just needs to be flat, particularly among the hitters. I think Heel is the most likely guy to win just because, he has overall been excellent. He's got an ERA under 3.2. He's filled the void for the Yankees when Garrett Cole was on the IL to start the season. And he's a very good pitcher, but he's not been consistent, and he's had some real blow-ups. And I think he's pitched, like, coming into this season, he pitched like 22 innings in 3 years or something. Like, he has workload concerns. Even if I think he's the favorite, I think he is very vulnerable. I think that Mason Miller is kind of looming as a potential default winner just because he's been one of the best closers in baseball. Issue is he may get traded, and also because he's a closer. He's like one bad inning from just being completely unelectable. So he's not super appetizing, but I think that he should be a little bit shorter. And then of these hitters, like Brooks Lee, his price collapsed in the market. I don't see it with Brooks Lee at all. Like, he's played 11 games all season. He has 0.3 WAR. He doesn't project as a guy who is just going to start accumulating WAR at a rapid rate. Like, Fangraphs projects him to be a below average hitter the rest of the way, which might be not correct, but I don't really see the case for Brooks Lee. I think the guys that I would target as long shots, I would look at my man Ben Rice on the Yankees, who his expected stats are like incredible. Like, the way that his like StatCast metrics, he's got an expected slugging percentage of 611. He's really started to come on lately. He had a 3 home run game at a game that I was at Yankee Stadium against the Red Sox a bit over a week ago that really kind of boosted his stats. And I don't think these expected stats are going to hold, but if they just do, and he's a 277 hitter who slugs 611 as the cleanup hitter for the New York Yankees, then all of a sudden in a weak field, he can get interesting real fast. He's 25 to 1. I think you might be able to hunt around and find some 40 to 1, 50 to 1, which I think is a bet. Spencer Horwitz is 35 to 1. Again, might be some 50 to 1 around. Also, fantastic expected stats. He is accumulating WAR. Like, he's got like 1.3 WAR, and it makes him like 3rd in the whole field already. So I think that he is another guy to watch. Colt Keith, his price collapsed recently in the market. I think there's a little bit of meat on the bone still at 30 to 1. So those would be the 3 guys I would go to war with, would be Keith, Rice, and Horwitz, which is not, it's not exactly the 2016 Warriors. But those are the guys that I would choose. If I had to pick one of the 3, I think it's probably Horwitz, because he just has, he's batting second for the Blue Jays, who I think are going to trade some pieces that will they just need to get rid of Justin Turner, which I think they will. And then it just creates a lot more kind of playing time for him. He's already playing every day, but it's because there are injuries at the moment. Don't know why they won't just play him against lefties. The team's going nowhere anyway. Just play the guy. He's good. And he is the guy I think who's most likely to really compete at the top in terms of WAR and OPS, which is ultimately probably what's going to decide the award if Heel falls off a bit. So he would be my favorite horse, for better or worse.
Okay. It was interesting that I wasn't sure where you were attacking on this. And it's interesting that you're going with the guys that have relatively small sample to this point, but have shown enough promise that you can kind of believe that they're going to continue to get the opportunities and then make something of those opportunities. Because yes, this is an award that likely is going to be won between July 15th and September 30th. So that makes sense to me. I'm definitely very, very interested in getting off Langford, looking at, him being at the top of the market in particular. And I'll take some long shots. I guess just for clarification purposes, if everybody belly flops here, Do you really, is there a case to be made for Colton Cowser, who's been an everyday player on what is now a division leader, probably likely a division winning Orioles team? His defensive contributions have been spectacular, even if his, kind of ability to deliver, offense at the plate has been meh. Is that ultimately like a, kind of a people throw their hands up and say, well, he played a lot and his defense was great. Let's give it to Cowser.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just as likely to win as Langford at this point. Honestly, like he leads all rookies in F-War. B-War doesn't like him as much. B-War needs to take a really good hard look in the mirror. Like B-War is treating like Francisco Lindor as like a kind of a meh defensive player. It's like, what? He's like by Fangraphs has him as the best defensive player in the whole National League, and you're not even adding like defensive WAR to his stats. Baseball Reference. Anyway, I think that with Cowser, I think he is the second most likely guy to win after Heel. It's just that like he's batting 219 and like he has a path to playing a bit more. Like they need to start trading. They've got like 10 outfielders, Baltimore. They need to start trading some guys. He's been batting like towards the bottom of the lineup as well. It's not super inspiring. He is a potential default winner. Mason Miller is a potential default winner. Heel is a potential default winner. I think those three are your most likely guys to win if just like nothing happens and everyone continues to be bad. But relative to price, like, 12-1, there's probably a little bit of meat on the bone on Cowser, but I'd rather see just the deadline shake out for Baltimore and see if they do move guys like Hayes or Cedric Mullins, because they should be playing like Kierstad and Cowser more, I think. Kierstad's another guy who's like, he hasn't played that much and he just got concussed because he got hit in the head with a baseball. But like no one has run away with this at all. Like you can start building your case right now. And it's not as inspiring as when I had Gunnar Henderson. It's my horse last year to kind of surge. Well, Spencer Horwitz is not Gunnar Henderson. Ben Wright's underlying stats say he is apparently Gunnar Henderson. I don't really trust it yet. But yeah, I would be, if you were to pick one of the guys at the top of the board at price, to your point, Cowser would be my guy. But I think this is a market to really hunt for long shots, because this is the type of market where books can struggle to price sometimes because it is so weird and there is so lacking in a candidate. But this is like Gunnar Henderson last year was 40-1 at one point. Michael Harris was 75-1 the year before when he won. So it's a market, it's an award that is ripe for long shots and guys building their case from mid-season on. Rice and Horwitz are my two favorites there, with maybe a bit of a saver on my man Colt, not McCoy, Colt Keith would be the other one. So yeah, we'll see how this one shakes up. This is the market that I pay the most attention to night to night, just because it is so wide open. Anyway, covered a lot today, Drew. The sun is now out. The thunderstorm is past. We podcasted through a thunderstorm, taking shots at Gareth Southgate and the legitimacy of Barbora Krejčíkova's Wimbledon title. And we finally ended up with Spencer Horwitz at 35-1 to win our Rookie of the Year. So everything has been covered. In the meantime, don't forget to check out NBCsports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we'll see you next time.